So this week we have a treasure trove of great data from the National Association of Realtors. Now they don't use it to paint the picture where the market is, I don't think properly, but I will. And Redfin still wants to scare people, and it just makes no sense at all. Before we get into that, I'm Bill Gross. This is my weekly real estate market update. And I always say, well, let's start with the statistics of where the market is if we want to try to get a sense of where it's headed. So we always start with two things. In an economy, you have supply and demand, and that's determined by buyers and sellers. Buyers primarily based on interest rates, and sellers as measured primarily by inventory. Let's take a look at those two factors right now. Mortgage rates have stayed about where they've been, though last week went up about 0.1% to 7.19%. Now, importantly, it stayed above 7% now for a couple weeks. It had been between 6 and 7 all year long, bouncing a little above, then back down below, a little above, back down below, and for the last few weeks has stayed above. Now, the biggest fear when rates went up this high was that rates would continue out of control, hyperinflation, 8%, 9%, 10%. We're not there today. If you're gonna buy a house, you can lock in a rate at 7 to 8%, just like buyers did last year, a year or two ago, at 2 and 3%, and take advantage of those lock-ins. So right now, there are plenty of buyers based on these rates because those rates are creating great demand for buyers. How about on the seller side? You can't have a housing crash unless you have too many houses, and therefore people want to cut prices. But there's a bottom in the market now because there just are not enough houses to sell. Look at the inventory. We're now still below all-time levels of inventory, below the pandemic of the last 2 years or 3 years, however you want to term it, and about half of it was prior to the pandemic. So the market's not gone back to normal at all. It's actually gone below the pandemic levels in housing. As long as there's so little homes, you can't have home sellers panicking and cutting the price of their homes to create a buyer's market. So we know that's the condition and where we're at. In LA, a great tool I use is Altos Research, and they use an numeric standard between 1 and 100 as to whether it's a buyer or seller's market. And the market bounced again to 43. It was 44. It's been 43 or 44 for the whole year. So basically, the market is staying about the same. One of the key factors I watch is per square foot, what you get when you buy a home, and you notice it's declining a little bit. Just a few weeks ago, you got about $860 is what it cost to buy a square foot of home in LA, and now you're getting it for about $824. So let's tell you there's more lower price homes being sold, and the prices are coming down a little bit. They're flattening out. So those are things to watch. Not saying the market is headed lower or crashing, but something to pay attention to. Okay, so let's get into the National Association of Realtors. I'm a realtor. I'm a member of the National Association, and I do appreciate the economics and statistics. I don't appreciate the politicking that our association does. But they just released a treasure trove of information that they want to call their Real Estate Forecast Summit. Now, they want to present it as their forecasting. They do a terrible job of that. But in the course of doing that, they provide some fantastic data. And the theme of all this is, hey, I thought this was a problem, but I guess it's not. What do I mean by that? Let's take a look at this. So here is average number of offers received on most recent sale. So currently we get about 3.5 offers per sale. That's about what I'm getting. It was as high as 5.5 during the peak of the pandemic when things were crazy. You had stories of homes getting 20 offers and 30 offers, and I've had that happen, but that was rare. There's usually a reason why, but the market was about 5.5 offers per sale. And has dropped, but you can see historically it's been 1 or 2 per sale, and we're still now higher than that number and rising. So I thought the market was slowing down, crashing, but you can see no, we still have more offers per sale than any other period in time other than the pandemic, and it seems to be rising. Okay, so the next one is, I thought investors are buying all the houses and crowding out the buyers. Well, not true. The share of non-primary residence buyers today is 18%. That's about the same as it's been throughout history, the last 10, 15 years or so. It's gone down since the pandemic, but there's investors who have also been wiped out as a result. So these were crazy times, but we're still in, by history, 18%, about a fifth or so, are homes bought by investors, non-primary occupant buyers, but most, about 80% of homes, are still being bought by people to live in. So that's not true. Well, how about
Cash buyers are flooding the markets and crowding out regular buyers. We've seen numerous articles on that. Well, in fact, here we are in 2023, 26% buyers are cash. That is higher than the last few years, right? But lower than, say, the early 2000s. So kind of in the fat middle of history, cash buyers. Not high, not low, kind of about normal. And so all the hysteria about it, why would there be? I don't know. Next is, I thought there'd be a lot of distressed sales. A lot of people can't afford their homes. Turns out there's not. Turns out 2% of all sales are foreclosures or short sales. And that's along the bottom of the barrel by historic standards. Now, yes, in 2008, got up to 49%. That was a unique mortgage market meltdown. But the rest of the time since, it's been correcting down to about 2%. Might it go up? It could. So you read these articles, oh, it doubled. Well, it went from this little blip to this number. It's just such nonsense. Clearly, distressed sales today are not significant, okay? How about homeownership rates? We read all these stories about the young people can't afford to buy homes. Homeownership rate for those under 35 is slightly below average over history. It was slightly above average in the early 2000s, below average in the 1990 period, a little above average in the 1980 period. But over time, it's hovered around 40%. And today we're at 39%, up from 38%. So all the stories about, well, first-time home buyers, new families can't be formed, that's not quite true. The percentage is still about the same. The average homeownership rate for people under 35 is still about the same, about 40%. Okay, now here's some new data. And I think this is really impactful, more for realtors and business people than homeowners. But if you're a homeowner, you might want to look at this. The median time a seller is in their home has gone up from 6 years when I got into business, I used to say for years, 8, up to 10 years. The average seller stays in their house, it's almost doubled. Big implications to all kinds of businesses because you'll see more renovations, more solar panels, going in, more installing EV car charger units, more ADUs, additional dwelling units, pools. Because if people are in the house longer, their horizon will be longer for their return on investment. Similarly, the median expected buyer time in a home has gone up from 7 years to 18 years. The people who are buying homes, the small section of people who are buying homes, not the majority of Americans, but those buying homes, expect to be there longer than ever. The current resellers expect to be there for 15 years. That's a big change. So as a realtor, you're not going to see your customer again for 15 or 18 years. What are you going to do to be relevant to earn referrals and more business down the road? You can't just count on them to buy another house unless you're going to be in business for 15 or 18 years. Buyers use agents. Here's another one. 86% of buyers use agents. Some go to the seller. In my experience, what happens is the seller discounts the house, the buyer negotiates a discount, they end up selling it for less than a realtor would. That said, still, with all the technology, you might think, hey, people buy cars online now, they buy insurance online now, they bank online. 86% of buyers still use a real estate agent. How about sellers? Same thing. Sellers still want full service agents. In fact, if anything, more so. The for sale by owner number is ticked up a little bit since the pandemic, but it's towards the all-time low for sale by owners and other programs. But those who want full service from agents has been about the same. There's a reason why. We generally give more value than we charge a customer, as a general rule. Okay, now, that's interesting data to use going forward. Now let's lay this over what we find out from the real estate industry news. We find, once again, the information they're giving us is pretty much either meaningless or dishonest. So this is the exception. This is the first article I've seen in a while that countermounted the housing affordability crisis scenario. That's nonsense. As I said all along, the only crisis is that our states won't allow us to build more homes. If we build more homes, people can buy more homes. If we don't build more, there's only so many homes for people to buy. Here's Fortune magazine saying the same thing. Strained housing affordability is a manufactured crisis created by bad zoning. It's as if I said it. I say this almost every week. And they use as an example Los Angeles. Imagine that. So welcome to the party, Fortune Magazine, because they've also talked about the housing affordability crisis week after week after week. But somebody in their writing column or whatever actually told the truth, which is there's no housing affordability crisis. We just have a business where we don't build enough homes. If we don't build more homes, we can't get people to buy more homes. So here's kind of the flip side of that same story. This is a negative article. Planetizen is an interesting website that talks about developments by different cities. And their article is, how one LA developer used the law to build apartments. California density bonus law lets developers skirt some zoning regulations. Skirt. Now that's a negative connotation. When you skirt regulations, I believe it means you ignore them. I believe it means you're violating the law or you're not paying attention to things. Somehow somebody is not looking, you're skirting the law, sneaking in the back way. But when you read the article, what you find out is they quote a particular developer, Liam Dillon, I'd love to meet, JHA. And what it says is these guys are so smart because they learn the regulations and where they can build bigger projects based on bonus densities, and they buy homes in those areas. And I know a lot of investors that do this, they're doing it really well. And so it says in the article, they use California's density bonus law, which allows developers to build more dense housing on a lot in exchange for dedicating some of the units for low-income families to bypass many zoning codes. That's the law. So here you have kind of like a not in my backyard, build anywhere, just not in my backyard, but my backyard's all of California website, kind of taking to task a developer who is reading the law, following the law. They just don't like the results that the law has created. Lastly, I don't get this one, Redfin. Now, I don't know. Redfin, I feel, is like having an identity crisis. What are they? Are they an advertising platform? Are they a real estate agency that's online? Are they a discount real estate agency that's going to save customers money? Are they just some plain internet website that's advertising? So this week looks like it's the last. The article they put out is Redfin adds wind risk data for U.S. homes. Now when you go to Redfin Home, it'll have on there information about the home's wildfire, flood, extreme heat. You're buying a house in Palm Springs, I guess one house has heat and one doesn't. And wind risk. Now, is that going to vary by neighborhood much? Is that data going to be accurate? So I think that some of this information is so granular. And having seen some of it, now it's true. I have customers who want to buy homes up in hills and mountains, and those homes have certain fire risk because their backyard is a canyon, their backyard is brush, and they got to pay attention to that. But I think we have so many regulations now to pay attention to that. But more importantly, buyers don't look at that distinction, the risk. They know there's a trade-off because they want to live on a hill. They want to live in the areas where there's trees and such. They enjoy that type of lifestyle. Heat. You buy a house in Las Vegas, there's going to be heat. I don't think Redfin putting on the heat index by neighborhood or block isn't going to change somebody. So I think it's nice they add the data on there. I just feel like when they advertise this stuff, I just feel like they appeal to the dumbest element of a market. And I feel like they have a platform opportunity to elevate their customers, teach them to prepare by getting pre-approved, teach them to cut expenses and save money and make the effort to pursue the American dream, to build wealth, to build income, to build generational wealth. Instead, they're putting the wind risk data on there, I guess, to catch people who are still following the Hawaii fire, which is a tragedy. So at the end of the day, Redfin, I'm sorry, you get some raspberries. So what should you do? At the end of the day, the decision always is about you and your situation. If it's time for you to buy, let's talk. Let's get you pre-approved. And if you're a first-time buyer, there's some strategies you can use to get into a lower down payment or lower your costs. Or if you're looking to transfer and move, sell a house, buy a house, let's talk about that strategy. You're looking to sell a house, it's a great time to sell. Let's make sure you have the right strategy for you. If I can help you, I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media, or call or text me. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.